1 year has passed since my husband caught me betraying him with my high school teacher. It's hard to believe it's been a full year since that moment. The night Andrew walked in early from work and discovered the unimaginable, the secret I had kept hidden for months, one that tore apart my marriage and, in many ways, my very sense of who I am. There are moments when I still can't comprehend the disastrous choice I made, a decision that forever altered every relationship I held dear. Yet, here I am, left to live with the consequences. It all started unexpectedly. I ran into Mr. Foster at a high school reunion. He had been my history teacher, the charming young man all the girls had secretly admired. We lost touch after graduation, but when we saw each other again, it felt like stepping back into the past. Our conversations began innocently, just catching up on old times. At the time, my life seemed content on the surface. I was 29, married to Andrew for 6 years, and working a decent job. But below that exterior, I felt lost. Andrew and I had been trying to start a family for 2 years without success. We had experienced several miscarriages, and the strain from it all was wearing us down. I was drowning in grief and frustration, while Andrew immersed himself in work as a way to cope. The more he withdrew, the more I felt alone. What used to be an easy connection between us had turned into awkward silences and distance. The tension in our home was unbearable, and I began to yearn for an escape from the heaviness surrounding me. That's when Mr. Foster re-entered my life. What started as simple nostalgia gradually grew more personal. I shared thoughts with him that I hadn't even confided in Andrew, my deepest fears, my sadness, the struggles I couldn't face. Mr. Foster seemed genuinely concerned, and that attention was like a lifeline. One afternoon, we met for coffee, which turned into lunch. The way he looked at me was familiar, comforting, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. I knew I was crossing a dangerous line, but I convinced myself I deserved an escape from the pain of my marriage. When he kissed me in his car that day, I didn't pull away. Soon, our meetings became more frequent and intimate. We would meet at a hotel on the outskirts of town. Each time, guilt would surface, followed by an undeniable rush of desire. I told myself it was just a temporary escape, that it wasn't hurting anyone, because no one knew. But deep down, I was lying to myself. I was betraying Andrew, the man who had been by my side through the darkest of times. The night Andrew discovered the affair wasn't dramatic or explosive. He came home early one evening, and I hadn't expected him. Mr. Foster had just left after a visit, and we were sitting on the couch when Andrew walked in. The confusion on his face quickly turned to understanding, then a quiet devastation that made my stomach churn with shame. He didn't shout or demand answers. He simply said, "Please, both of you leave." That night, I packed a bag and left, staying in a hotel because I couldn't face the reality of what I had done. Andrew didn't reach out in the days that followed. I moved in with a friend, trying to gather the pieces of my life. I knew our marriage was over before the divorce papers arrived. Andrew didn't want reconciliation. He didn't want closure. He just wanted me gone, like a sickness that needed to be eradicated. After the divorce, I stopped seeing Mr. Foster. What we had wasn't love. It was a distraction from the emptiness I had been too afraid to confront. He tried reaching out a few times, but I ignored him. I didn't want to be reminded of the person I had become during that time. I was ashamed of myself and didn't know how to fix the broken pieces of my identity. In the years since that night, I've had to rebuild my life from scratch. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city and changed jobs to avoid the whispers from colleagues who knew about the affair. I felt like I had to start fresh, not only for myself, but as a way to atone for the pain I had caused. Therapy became my lifeline. With my therapist's help, I was able to uncover the layers of guilt and self-loathing that had been weighing me down. I realized that my affair wasn't just about Andrew or Mr. Foster. It was a reflection of my own unresolved pain, insecurities, and an inability to cope with failure. I used the affair to distract myself from my grief, but in doing so, I only made things worse. A few months ago, I reached out to Andrew, hoping to apologize. I didn't expect forgiveness, but I needed him to know how deeply I regretted what I had done. I left a voicemail, my voice shaking, but he never replied. I don't blame him. Some wounds are too deep to heal, and I have no right to ask anything from him after all I've done. The hardest part has not been the loneliness or the judgment from others who knew about the affair. The hardest part has been coming to terms with the person I was during that time. I had always considered myself a good person, someone who valued honesty and integrity. But I became someone who lied, someone who betrayed the person who loved me most. The affair didn't just end my marriage. It forced me to face the darker parts of myself that I had always ignored. 1 year later, I am still working on forgiveness, not from Andrew or even from those who once respected me, but from myself. I'm learning to accept that I made terrible choices, that I let my weaknesses define me for a time, but that doesn't have to be who I am forever. I am slowly making peace with the past, even though the process is painful. I no longer see myself as the person I was during the affair, but as someone who is trying to be better every day. I don't know if I will ever be able to rebuild the relationships I lost, or if I'll ever see Andrew again. If I do, I hope I can look him in the eye and know I've done everything I could to grow from this experience. But if that day never comes, I'll continue to move forward, one day at a time, understanding that healing is not linear and redemption doesn't have a clear endpoint. For now, I focus on small victories, finding joy in simple moments, rediscovering forgotten passions, and reconnecting with old friends who didn't turn away when everything fell apart. They reminded me that I am more than my mistakes, and though I can't undo the past, I have the power to shape the future I want. This past year has been a lesson in humility, in understanding the complexities of emotions, and in realizing that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is oneself. But I'm still here, still trying, and for now, that's enough.